Up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of our Global Afro Podcast. It's me, Cheryl Kapong here. Introduce yourself. Tell us who you're here with. Tell us where you're from.
Hi, sis. My name is Zikora Ibeh, and I'm from Nigeria. I work with Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa. So nice to be with you.
Nice for you to join us. Thank you so much. I've been chasing her down, y'all, because she has a lot to say, and I'm really excited to have this conversation and ground with you, and for you to tell us kind of what's been going on as we're nearing the end of COP, and for you to kind of tell us what we're looking forward to for our comrades back home. So first and foremost, tell me about your organization and what you guys do.
Yeah, so my organization is Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, and we are based in Nigeria, even though we have allies and partners across African countries like Senegal, Uganda, Kenya, Mozambique. So basically, we work with frontline communities and deal with their issues on climate change, because we think that most times the discourse on climate change is removed from frontline communities, or frontline communities are removed from the discourse. So our mission, or what we do most of the times, is to go into those places where people, policymakers will ordinarily not go into, right? Sit down with them, think about their issues and see what can be done. We're focused on the environment, education, and public services, really. So doing that across Africa.
That's so cool. And so tell me, what brings you to COP? First of all, this is not your first COP. You've been here before, so you know the space kind of. So
Yeah.
what brings you to COP?
Well, what brings me to COP, like what brings many people from Africa, from the global south to COP, is to see how we can influence the conversations here, to push that alarm, to sound that alarm that climate change is imminent, and there is a lot happening in terms of impacts to frontline communities. And as we all know, or we say, that the global south contributes the least to climate change and the emissions that spur it, right?
Yeah.
But then they bear the brunt of the impact. So when you go to communities, especially from where I come from in West Africa, and even across the region in Africa, there's flood, there are droughts, there are, erasure of farmland. So there's a whole lot happening and being spurred by changes in temperature, changes in weather, and people are just there suffering for it, and there are the conversations happening at global levels that they cannot be part of because of many factors. Perhaps they do not have sponsorship to be here, they do not have enough intel, enough knowledge on the conversations. So most times we show up not because we are better than them, but I'm a frontline person.
Yeah.
I live in a frontline community, so
Right.
I'm part and parcel of that damage that is happening on
Right.
a daily basis. So when we come to the conversation here at COP, we come to see how we can raise our voices. It's important to say that most times our voices are drowned by the people who own the most power, the people who contribute the most to emissions, and who own seat at the power spaces to decide what happens, to decide what the climate discourse should be like. So when we come here in solidarity with our communities down front, saying that we are here, decisions won't be taken without us being present, and we want to, as much as we can, influence the conversations and tweak it to reflect the realities on ground, not just surface issues.
So you've said a lot. We're gonna just get right into it and start with the tough conversations. COP, the space of COP, that a lot of times that we've heard what's happening is that there's two different COPs happening, right? We're talking to ourselves and our vulnerable communities as the global south, the people who are, like you said, experiencing the brunt of these climate crises, and because of climate change and environmental racism, all of this, that, the third. And then you have the negotiations that are occurring between countries, between corporations, where they're making decisions that are affecting the very same communities. So what is it that you think that the COP space needs in order for us to see any kind of real tangible change in our communities? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I think that the COP space needs an injection of the people that matter. I'm not saying that the people in the COP space do not matter right now, but the people who bear the most impact of what we talk about. I mean, many people are in fancy suits. They could go back to their huge sky-rise buildings and do not feel what it means to live in the heart of the crisis, right? So many times you look at the people who attend COP, it will seem that we come to COP and we dress up, right? We play dress up with our communities, but I mean, the things that happen in our communities are beyond dress up. And we need to have those voices. When you go to communities to hold interviews with community members, you see them crying, right? You see them saying, you see that there's no hope in their eyes. I don't know what's going to happen to me. I don't know what's going to happen to my family. Let me say this. I was in an action. I've been in a couple of actions of protest in this COP.
Okay.
And there was one I was in, and these guys were speaking, and they were laughing. They were laughing. I think they are white. They're from the UK or somewhere, but Europe.
Yeah.
But they were talking to the camera. They were spokespersons for the action, but they were laughing. They forget their lines. Now, I'm not trying to say that doesn't make them serious or it doesn't make them unaware of the issues, but the way I see it, if you live with the issues, I don't think you will have the luxury of laughter. I don't think you would forget what is happening to you. Like you're saying your lines and you're like, I forgot. Give me a time to think.
Right.
I found that really condescending, even though it was civil society.
Ooh.
Yeah, but I found that condescending. I was thinking, no, you can't do that, and this is because you do not live in
The communities.
the communities.
Yep. Wow.
Nobody is going to forget that the river has taken their houses.
Yeah.
Nobody is going to forget that. They do not. I mean, I see women. I interact with women every day who have to sleep on water, on canoes, sleep in their canoes with their children on water because their houses have been taken away. I talk to people who can no longer farm anymore.
Wow.
So imagine a civil society person saying, "Oh, I forgot my lines," and I'm laughing, and I need time to recollect in front of the camera.
Right.
If this can happen to a civil society person, so what do you think can happen inside the negotiation hall where civil society is basically excluded, and the people who you have in the negotiation hall are people who are all for profits over livelihoods. So even when they discuss about these issues, they have to discuss about the issue in a way that still preserves their profits.
So what then do you say, and you bring up a really good point, because I think a lot of times even amongst the vulnerable communities and vulnerable groups, there can be a disconnect, right, of the people that they're supposed to be representing.
Exactly.
There's erasure, Afro erasure, women erasure, all of these other things that we see that when it comes to like the intersectionality of all of our identities. So then what do you say to the people who say that, like, essentially what I'm asking is, we see all these issues, so where do we go from here? Like, where do we practically go from here? There's value in coming to these COP spaces, obviously.
Exactly.
We're here.
Yeah.
And I met you at this COP space. And so I see the value in that. By the way, guys, can y'all hear? Please, because I know it's a lot going on back here. So if you're online and you can hear, please just give me some kind of verification that you guys can hear. But, so my question is, as we're here in this space together and we're trying to strategize, what can we do?
I mean, it still boils down to building that web of resistance and connection that cannot be denied. Okay. I see you as my sis at COP here. Yes. I know that you feel this problem deeply. I mean, if we can't bring the frontline communities to COP, if they cannot be present, because let me tell you something, I also feel like sometimes there's also a colonization of the COP, even within civil society, even within impacted communities, right? Wow. You come to COP and you have like just indigenous communities from, say, Asia or the southern parts, but there are also indigenous communities in Africa and other places.
Jamaica, Brazil.
Black indigenous communities. Okay, let's put it clearly. You come to COP and the kind of indigenous communities you see, even if we are all global south, people who you don't think we share the same connection. I don't want to be very discriminatory.
Yeah.
We do share the same connection, but it will help for me to see a person, an indigenous Afro person.
Yeah.
We do have them in many.
Right.
Yeah, we do have multitudes of indigenous Afro persons across the continent, even beyond the continent.
Right.
So, but we do not see them here. And so, how can we build that solidarity amongst ourselves even here? I see you here, and I think this is my sis. She feels the problem.
Right.
How can we build an Afro solidarity that is loud at COP?
Yeah.
An Afro solidarity that also decides what is going to happen at COP.
Yeah.
That takes it back home. So I think that there should be some sort of connection, right?
Yeah.
A deliberate intention in having to draft our people on ground.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To build that representation matters.
Yeah.
Representation matters. Somebody was talking to me this afternoon. She's new at COP, and we were at the plenary, and she kept telling me, oh, why does it seem like I do not see other indigenous black persons in terms of the discussions? And remember, we have been discussing the Israel-Hamas war, ceasefire in Palestine, ceasefire in Gaza. Have we ever at COP had that kind of representation? There are a lot of wars going on in Africa. We have the Tigray war, Ethiopian, we have Congo, and so and this is not to divide our struggles.
Yeah.
Our struggles are one big struggle, united across the globe. There's no division, but representation matters, and we need to start looking out for that representation anywhere we find them and build on it.
No, you've said a lot of important things. So that's why, so at Chisholm, we're the secretariat for an organization that, she came to one of our meetings. We're the Global Afro-Descendant Climate Justice Collaborative. We seek to connect environmental justice activists across the diaspora, so the people on the continent of Africa, but also in Jamaica, Brazil, Latin America, South America, the US, the UK, indigenous peoples who are indigenous to where... Oh, we had a little error. Okay, guys, if you guys can hear... Please make sure you say if you can hear. No one has said anything, but I see you guys there, so please say if you can hear. But yeah, we seek to connect environmental justice activists across the diaspora in all of the different areas, because we know that it doesn't matter where we are, we're the most vulnerable communities. The data shows every single time. And so I guess my question is, now we're trying to think of the strategy that we have to integrate ourselves into becoming a constituency. So for those of you guys who don't know grounding, there are constituency groups within COP. Women's gender has a constituency. It took a long time, but they have one. Indigenous people has a constituency. It took a long time, but they have one. And so what we hope to do is, like our sister here was talking about, we need a constituency for Afro-descendants, because we also have, while we all have one struggle, there are unique things that are specific to Black people and to our specific struggle. Like I said, the data shows. So my question to you is, we're talking about strategy. What do we do when we leave from here? When we leave COP, how do we continue to strategize amongst ourselves and with each other? What should we be doing practically as someone who's on the frontline community, and you're an organizer, and where there are people who will be watching this, there are funders who will be watching this, there are other organizations who will be watching this, and they're all saying, we want to help, we want to help. How? What is it what are the needs of the people?
Build the link. I keep saying it, build the link, build the solidarity link. The experiences are the same, even if different or in different places. So we need to share that link. We need to open the eyes of our people to know that while this is the situation, this is abnormal. We need to build that anger. And that can only come from our connections, the kind of connections that we build. You see me here, I'm here with you, and we're talking about discourse, and I'm going to take back our discussion back to my communities. And if there are any work that we're going to do, we're going to do it. And if before the next COP, I would think that, of course, I'll be reaching out to you saying, hey, sis, are you going to be on ground? This is what is going to happen.
Right.
How can we coordinate this? This is what it's looking like. What can we do to have this happen? How can we integrate this particular community in the discussion?
Right.
Now there's a discussion about loss and damage fund.
Right.
How are we? There's a lot of money coming in, even if the money is still meager compared to the impact.
Right.
But there are still the vague areas in terms of processes. How are these monies going to be disbursed? It's going to be housed in the way. It's going to be warehoused in the World Bank. How is the World Bank going to use this money?
Right.
What are the communities that have been identified?
Right.
Because it has to go beyond the national level. The national, the country receiving the money, it has to trickle down to the impacted communities.
Right.
And we work with the frontline communities.
Right.
So how are we going to make sure that we embed these communities in the discourse, in defining the process of which the money goes to who needs them? So we need that kind of coordination, and it will only follow through with the kind of linkages that we build, and how far we are able to use that influence to define whatever is happening.
Wow, you said a lot of things. I think that one of the most important things is, like you said, I think a lot of times the language of even people within the environmental justice space is one of saviorism. I see our sister Maya said that we need a constituency for the Afro diaspora, and we do, and that's what we are working to build here together. But yeah, I see a lot of times that one of the things that tends to occur is within the environmental justice space, there's a lot of language of like saviorism, of helplessness, of people coming and speaking for. They're like, oh, we need to, the voice for the voiceless. But it's like, they are not voiceless. Like, they have voices and can speak.
Yes,
and we need the amplification of these voices in order to really push the change forward that we want to see, and for it to be sustainable, and for us to actually really change the realities. Because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to change realities. We know a new world is coming.
Yes.
We know it's coming. Things are different. And the wars that we're fighting now are not only on the ground, but they're also intellectual, and it's also a spiritual one as well.
Yeah.
And so when we're envisioning and we're thinking about this new world that we're trying to do, what do you think is, then this is a twofold question, what do you think is the biggest thing that's holding us back as a community? And how do you think that we can fight that thing to then move forward?
So a lot of times we have a lot of divisions, be it ethnic, race division, or the kind of commitments that we've signed up, what we want to see. So somebody was telling me, hey sis, what's the meaning of, I saw a banner today and somebody said, we say no to just transition, phase out fossil fuel. And he was like, I'm confused. Is there supposed to be something wrong with just transition? So the point is, we need a just transition. But here is a civil society member saying, we're carrying a banner saying, we say no to just transition. We need to phase out fossil fuel. So it's like a lot of times we're talking, but our tones are split, even though we want the same thing, right?
Right.
So we just think that, let me just craft my own niche and do something that puts me somewhere, that puts me in the light, and blah blah blah. That's something like that. But the truth is that we cannot work in silos. We cannot work differently when our purpose is the same. So we need to, and the purpose has to be grounded in the needs of the people that are at the front line.
Yeah.
These people need justice for what has been done to them. They need reparations. They need adaptational support. They need mitigational support. So our purpose has to be grounded in the needs of the people, so that when we speak, we do not speak in different tones. So nobody comes and say, we say yes to just transition, and this person says we say no to just. How can you say no to just transition? A transition must be just. It must be just. You can't say you can't say no to just.
Right.
So and we need that education, the kind of education that empowers us to realize that, look, we're all saying the same thing. We're saying the same thing, and we just need to, I keep telling people, when you go to the rooms where we are cordoned off, these guys, different corporates, different suits and ties, different companies, but they are saying the same thing. The same thing. What they want is, we don't want you to say phase out fossil fuel in the text. The language is the same. They might be working with different companies, different corporations, but they all say the same thing. We need to build that in civil society.
Right.
And that is because their aim is, their aims are grounded in profits. So no matter how different they are, they all want the same thing. Yeah, they come to a center. So our aim has to be grounded in something. Which means that no matter how different our works are, as long as we say we are climate activists, environmental justice activists, we have to be grounded in a call. So that's what I think needs to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to coordinate ourselves better. We need to trust our intent better, our commitment, our solidarity better, and know that we are all looking out for each other, and we can only work where we decide to, think as one in purpose.
Period. One of our sisters is asking you to introduce yourself again and uplift your work, both of us. So I'll let you do that one more time for the people who have joined.
Yeah, my name is Zikora Ibeh from Nigeria. I work with Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, and our work is centered on environmental justice, access to education, and public services for all. Yeah.
Period. My name is Cheryl Kapong. I work with the Chisholm Legacy Project, which works at the intersection of just transition, the one they said we need to phase out, gender justice, racial justice, and Black femme wellness, because we know that a lot of times we're the most impacted. We are the secretariats alongside with PACSHA for the Global Afro Descendants, which seeks to connect Afro environmental justice activists across the diaspora, because we want to be a recognized constituency at the UNFCCC. We have our own resolutions with our own language that we want to integrate into the language that they use here. And yeah, we want a seat at the table when we're discussing our lives and our livelihoods. And so that's one of the things that we're working on, is to strategically help to create and to integrate that framework into the way they do things here at the UN. So that is who we are, and that is what we do. And I guess, just bringing us out, if you had to leave a message for everybody who's not here at COP, and tell them, and to represent your communities and the people that you're talking to, what would you say to them to help them to understand how serious and how dire the situation is?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if I had to leave a message, I would say that before I came to COP, I had a documentary looking at impact areas across Africa. I had one in Nigeria. I looked at a place called Ayetoro. Really used to be like the tourist center of West Africa. The community is such a nice community back then in the 90s. But in discussing with them right now, the community has gone underwater, can no longer survive. They're barely surviving. They used to have a lot of fish, a lot of crayfish, a lot of sea protein that they could eat. They had to, a lot of that has disappeared because of the changing weather, the changing temperature and everything. And in my conversations with them, the problem started as soon as oil started being drilled in their community. As soon as oil started being drilled in their community, they had spills upon spills that were not addressed because nobody was paying attention and nobody thought, they mattered. And so, what am I saying? A lot of communities have gone under. These guys are barely surviving. And this is not because they're asking for help, or they are powerless, or they are poor, or they are, wretched. They used to have good lives before corporations came into their communities. They used to be wealthy. They used to have their dignity with their land resources, and they lived very well. But as soon as corporations came in and the lack of governance in all that sort of operations, they became paupers in their own lands and environment. And right now we're talking about that cycle. Another circle is about being replicated with the integration of market systems in the climate discourse. I was in Kenya, and I had to do a documentary on the Ogek people who were being evicted as I speak to you right now. And as at the time I was interviewing them, many women and children were sleeping in schools. And when I talked to them, they said, they told us we were encroaching on our lands. These are lands that these people had stayed for over 100 years with their ancestors as stayers on that land. And so for somebody to come in and say that they are encroaching on the very land that bore their existence is a joke. But this is happening because of the government's interest in carbon market. And the government has cordoned off those areas to be used as bargaining chips for carbon credits. So how would you feel to be described in a legislation because this is what the community is defined as in Kenya's carbon trading bill, which is yet to be passed or has been placed down. But a community is defined as any group of people that can be displaced for carbon markets.
Wow.
How would you feel to be defined as that?
Wow.
It doesn't make sense. So these are people's lives that we're toiling with. And the saddest thing is that we have representatives, government representatives who come to COP, but who do not carry the spirit of the people to the COP.
Wow.
It is unfair. And the truth is that if we continue this system, one day the oppressed would also react. It's going to be like a free day for all. The system will collapse, whether we like it or not.
Whoa.
We can continue running the system as long as the profiteers can continue running the system like nobody matters and they can get away with it. But definitely, the system is going to collapse one day and everybody will be buried, like our people say. The people who in my place sleep under gas flares perpetrated by oil corporations, they do not have electricity. Morning, evening, night, they sleep under the flare of gas. Can you imagine that amount of pollution? They dry their fish with the gas flare. They dry their clothes with the gas flare. But if nothing happens, one day, even the oppressors will be buried in the gas flare. It has happened before.
All right, thank you so much.
So a new generation of resistance will come up. So we need to save ourselves. We need to save ourselves. We need to save the environment. We do not have any other environment but this one, and we do not have any one life. So nobody should be playing jokes with anybody else's life. That's unfair. That's an unhuman thing to do, and it's going to backfire. That's what I'm going to say.
Wow. You've left me with a lot to think about, even as somebody who, this is my first COP, so even as somebody who's, in this space and just understanding things, this is my first COP, but I'm Ghanaian, I'm first gen. I come from a community that has experienced a lot of these things firsthand, but you've given me so much to think about and so much to chew on, and, I pray for our future. I think about, our collective action. I know that we will win. I know that we will succeed. I have faith in what it is that we're trying to do and what it is that we're fighting against. But I just encourage everybody, look her up, look into her work, see what it is that she's doing, see how you can get involved, because we only have one Earth. And when this one is done, that's it. So we need to figure out how we're going to solve things today and get the real solutions and listen to people who are actually from the community when they tell you these things, because nobody knows better than the people whose lives it is firsthand directly affecting. So thank you, because it's an emotional process being here and sharing this stuff with that. So thank you. We are so appreciative. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, hit me up. And yeah, stay tuned. We have a couple of more episodes that we're going to put out for the podcast, and everything will be available, like I said in the other ones, on a story pin, so that you guys will be able to come back and watch all of the things. So yeah, thank you guys so much, and we will see you again tomorrow. Bye. Say bye.
Bye.